My name's Ruth Rogers, and I believe that humans are amazing. They just need space to be so. And for 8 years, I ran a cafe in Brick Lane, London called The Canvas that did just that. Our Pay It Forward board and food bank welcomed in and nourished thousands of our homeless and vulnerable neighbours. And our space hosted and hatched hundreds of positive projects created by amazing humans who had an idea to help others and needed space to do so. For them, the canvas was that space, and this podcast will celebrate those people and their ideas that developed and grew in one cafe with a huge heart. This magnificent space was forced to close in 2022, so I'm also exploring in this podcast the next steps for the canvas, chatting to some of the biggest names in community building and people power. I've seen that when given the space and opportunity to be so, humans are consistently amazing. We're generous, we're kind, we're hopeful, we're enterprising. How can we connect and unite more spaces to hold this humanity? Thanks for being here and welcome to the Canvas for Change. So welcome, thank you so much for listening. This is my first ever episode actually of this podcast, and I'm thrilled to be talking to Juliette Burton. A comedian, actor, writer and speaker. She's performed 6 one-woman shows at the Edinburgh Fringe, all that she's written herself, and her latest shows, Hope, Punk and Going Rogue, tour the UK this autumn following Fringe runs in Edinburgh. She has regularly toured the UK and the world, including Adelaide, Melbourne and New Zealand. She's written for Cosmopolitan magazine, The Independent, Huffington Post, BBC News and many others. She's an ambassador for Rethink Mental Illness and herself is open about her own history of mental health conditions. And she's also a podcaster, with her podcast Not So Lonely Planet launching in 2023. And while she's here to talk about the wonderful things she created at the Canvas in Hanbury Street, she played a huge and vital role in our Sydenham space as cafe and events manager. And she's the first ever person to be interviewed for my podcast, which feels absolutely right because she was the first person to approach me about running an event at the Canvas back in 2014. So welcome, Juliette Burton.
Thank you so much for having me, Ruth.
It's really lovely to see you. So what was the Canvas to you?
Well, the Canvas was where I launched and grew my comedy show, a mixed bill comedy show called Happy Hour.
So tell me about Happy Hour.
So Happy Hour was longer than an hour and it would make you happy, guaranteed. So that was the proviso. It was a free show. So we'd say that it would make you happy or your money back. But it's a free show. It was a donation vibe of show. So pay what you can, pay what you want. And it was the idea being that having worked as a comedian for many years, I had a whole network of amazing, talented friends who all were sort of mid-level or high level in the industry, but they didn't have many spaces that they could do new material at that was supportive. And the vibe that I wanted for Happy Hour was the audience are lovely to the acts and the acts are lovely to the audience. So none of the acts were allowed to pick on the audience members in a bullying way. They were allowed to do like audience interaction, but only if it was like the audience are the heroes. It was also a space where the audience was going to make it a safe space for the acts. So no damaging heckling, no belittling, and just being really supportive of each other. I was very proud of it. It started in 2015 and it ran for quite a few years. And we had some incredible acts. And we really built up a little community of audience members as well, who all then became friends with each other and supported acts that they wouldn't have otherwise been aware of. It was, really, really lovely.
So if you launched in 2015, we'd been open for just a few months, hadn't we? And I was definitely still deep in the world of how do I run a cafe? What's a staff rota look like? How do you work out the profit margin of avocados on sourdough? But I remember you coming in and asking me about the space. And I'm interested, what came first? The concept or the space? And while I think you may have answered it just now, I am interested, like, how did you hear about the Canvas and where did the idea for Happy Hour come in that journey in your mind?
So definitely in terms of concepts and space, so I just moved down from Edinburgh in January 2015. I'd been living up there for 4 years and I knew that I wanted to create a night in London. I wasn't living in London, I was living outside of London, but close enough to come in. And I I wanted to up my game with my own comedy that I do, and the only way that comedians can figure out what works and what doesn't is to throw it in front of an audience and see how they respond. So, but I knew for me and my personal and professional creativity, not all comedy nights were going to suit the stuff that I did. My stuff is very friendly and warm and with social justice at its core. And I'm very personally neurodiverse. I have, as you mentioned, a long history of mental illness, being sectioned under the Mental Health Act when I was a teenager and in and out of hospital 5 times for mental illness. And I talk about that on stage quite a lot in my jokes, in my comedy, with the vibe of breaking down barriers, increasing understanding, and helping other people feel less alone with whatever they're going through. And while I knew of other comedy nights, I didn't know anywhere that sort of had at the forefront of the comedy night that idea of community building and support, and also like charity, making sure that we're, if I'm going to be talking about those subjects on stage, I wanted to make sure we were able to promote the charities that could help people that might have been touched by similar experiences as well. So the idea came about, I think I remember my agent at the time and I were discussing to just start up my own night, and it would also help my friends, my comedian friends, have a bit of a support network as well as kind of setting the tone. If you're running your own night, then it's up to you what the tone is. So I was very galvanized by that, but it needed to be the right space. A pub wasn't going to be the right place for what I was intending. And the canvas was, as you say, a new kind of thing. I think it was via like the body gossip, the physical body image kind of work that I'd first heard of the canvas. And I came in and met you, and I remember quite clearly our first meeting, and we were sitting in a corner because I love a corner. And yeah, the space just had a very warm, friendly feel. There was a projector and a screen, which I need for a lot of what I do. Even when I don't need it, it's nice to have it. It just feels a bit more showbiz. And yeah, it just seemed like the right kind of space. It seemed, although it wasn't huge, you could fit quite a few people in there, and it would still feel like a community, no matter if you sold out or if you only had a handful of people. It just felt like it was really intimate and warm. And more than that, it was the ethos behind the canvas that seemed totally aligned with what I was trying to do. So with the social conscience, really building a community in the area that it was in. And yeah, I love Shoreditch, and it was in Shoreditch. I regularly go back there. It's a great place for foodies like me in recovery from eating disorders, and love Shoreditch. And yeah, we wanted the field to be very safe for audience members, for acts. And when I say safe, I mean if they come in and they're struggling with their mental health, or if they are neurodivergent, don't like to make eye contact, or they're very shy and they're very introverted. I just wanted it to be this kind of you are welcome here attitude for all marginalized groups, and for anyone who just wants to laugh or just sit there and not laugh. That's absolutely fine. So yeah, the idea came first, then the space continued to kind of support the idea, because as I say, it's not every space that would have suited that ethos that we were trying to put forward for Happy Hour.
Well, thank you. You've just cast me right back to 2015, which is really therapeutic for me, if I'm being completely honest and personal. I can picture those nights. I can feel myself watching them. But tell us what it's like running a regular comedy show. So what's the work that needs to be done?
Okay. I also, if you want to cast your mind back to 2015, there's something else that I should probably bring up that was very interesting timing that happened. But we'll first answer the question. There's a lot of work in running a comedy night, and considering it was a free night, there wasn't a lot of money. So as the producer of the night, you have to book acts. You need to get a flyer/poster designed and then redesigned each month because we did it monthly. But to promote the different acts that we're going to be on, you need to set up a ticketing system. Even for a free show, we wanted to make sure that we weren't selling out and not able to accommodate people. And so we eventually made the option of you can pre-book a ticket for free, or you can pre-book a ticket and make a donation in advance. We had a bucket on the door because back in those days people did carry some cash. And yeah, I had to get all the marketing material from the act, as well as writing my own material each month to try to test out, and yeah, make sure that your social media publicity is strong, and letting the venue know what it is that you need. We also had some acts that needed special technical help support, so trying to check in with the venue to see what we had, what we didn't have, what we'd need to provide. And yeah, and we also had a bit of a newsletter going as well, so trying to get people to give their email details, and I think GDPR started becoming a thing in 2018, so we were just before it became a little bit more red tapey. Yeah, and then on the actual night, it would be me showing up as early as I possibly could to set it all up, to welcome the acts first, to get them in to do a sound check and set up any technical requirements they had, rearrange the room so that it was a performance space, and then welcome audiences and make sure that me as host, MC, would set the tone, let them know what they were in for, and promote the canvas as well. Like, I think the deal that you and I sort of struck was I was so lucky that we had that space for free. Like, I couldn't have afforded to have done it otherwise, because traveling in and out of London isn't free. Yeah, being able to have that space for free, provide the act a free space as well, without making the arts or comedy inaccessible to people on low income. That's another a lot of people are aware of access requirements for people with physical disabilities or neurodivergence, but there's also is it accessible for people on varying incomes at the same time as how do you make it work for the acts? Like, the acts can't be taken advantage of. So lots of juggling there. Yeah, that's lots and lots of work, and I was very, very happy to do it because it felt like it mattered, and it was a community that I really believed in.
Well, you always felt very much part of the Canvas community, and I know this isn't about you and your amazing work at our Sydenham space, but I just want to touch on that you absolutely, you knew what we were doing when we were opening our Sydenham space, and you were so incredible at bringing the kind of the original heart of the Canvas down to Sydenham. But I'm really intrigued. What were you going to say about 2015?
Thank you for bringing that up again. Yeah, so I think we began in April 2015, and then in late April 2015, I got caught up in a Twitter storm back when it was Twitter, that was to do with the Beachbody Ready campaign, the advert campaign that caused a lot of people to sign a petition to get it removed from the London Underground because of its design being quite aggressive in its body shaming. And yeah, I got caught up in the sort of storm of it all, and I sort of became an accidental figurehead of one side of the argument, having had problems with anorexia, bulimia, binge eating disorder, having nearly died from anorexia, having been suicidal due to binge eating disorder. It felt like I was able to be informed on the perspective of body image and how marketing can affect it. And having been performing a show all about it, about body confidence, the previous year and that year, using my personal story to kind of hopefully broaden out the conversations around body image, how marketing and advertising can affect our perceptions of ourselves, as well as, our own life experiences. But it got really big. I was asked on Newsnight, I was asked to write for the BBC on it, I was asked to do lots of different interviews around it, and eventually in 2019 I read that it was cited as one of the reasons that the ASA, the Advertising Standards Authority, changed some of their policies based on the 2015 scandal. Scandal's the wrong word. 2015 conversation, shall we say, that kicked off. And yeah, the company that was involved also handled themselves online in quite a questionable way. If anyone wants to find out more about that, then I would highly recommend Googling my name and Beachbody Ready and just seeing what comes up, because it was a while ago, but it's having these continued ripple effects. I'd love to be able to say that it made me internationally successful and acclaimed and rich, but it didn't. But it did affect Advertising Standards Authority's policies, which I think is amazing. And that all happened. I remember when that kicked off, I was like, I need to comment on this, because for me, my comedy is a way of commenting on what whatever's going on in my life that's making me frustrated, or I need to have a voice. It's a way of me processing and having a voice. I was getting trolled by like thousands of people every single day, and also supported by thousands of people online every single day. And I was so nervous of that next happy hour, of bringing in the May happy hour, bringing some material that I was like, I need to address this. I just need to get this out there. And the support from the audience and the other acts was just phenomenal. I think you might have been standing at the back of the room for some of it, and that went on to inform my Edinburgh Fringe show that year, that then went on to tour in New Zealand and Australia the following year, and it won awards. It was my first sold out run that year in 2015 at Edinburgh. It sold out the next 4 years in a row, and it was like things kicked off. So if I hadn't have had that safe space to be supported and to deliver that kind of material, I don't know if any of that would have happened, because we are only as good as the soil that we're planted into. And for me, growing up, the soil I was planted into wasn't particularly supportive. So this space was really, it was nurturing for me.
Wow, Juliette, that's such an impressive legacy, and I thank you for bringing that story into what was clearly the foundations of Happy Hour at the Canvas, and how you were boosted and buoyed by the safe space that you had created in my safe space. So that's obviously a really special memory. What other special memories do you have of running Happy Hour at the Canvas?
We had some incredible acts. Let's start with the acts. We had people who went on to win Britain's Got Talent. So Lee Ridley, or Lost Voice Guy, is a friend of mine, and this was back before he even competed. He went on to be the winner of Britain's Got Talent a couple of years later. We had people who've gone on to tour internationally, like Abandaman performed, Rosie Holt, who became during the pandemic a sort of Twitter online superstar. We had Suze Kempner, who is one of my best friends still. We had some incredible acts, some absolutely beautiful, incredible acts that have really evolved and gone on to do some amazing things themselves. We also, though, incredible audience members who they became friends. I'm trying to hold healthy boundaries with my audience members, but there were people who had incredible stories, that lived in London, that perhaps had problems with loneliness. Some people, I don't want to break their boundaries by telling their stories on their behalf, but there were definitely people that came and turned up every single month, knowing that no matter how mental health was, they could sit there and they would be safe. So they would then tell me about their mental health struggles, and I'd be able to give them further resources, but also reassure them that if they came to this night, they wouldn't be picked on. And even so much as that there were a couple of people who I think they did have fluctuating mental health conditions, and they would just let me know when they came in, like where they were at, like whether they wanted to be involved with the act or not, and therefore I could subtly let the acts know if that person just don't talk to them in an interactive way today, because they've let me know that's not what they're up for, but this person over here is definitely up for it. It's that kind of space. And then we also had an amazing night that I regularly talk about, because they're just incredible people. We had a couple of, I think they were in their late teens when they first started coming to Happy Hour. I'd known them through other things, that they're one of their parents, and I actually were in a clinic together, one of the groups, self-help groups I've attended years ago, and their child came along to Happy Hour in their late teens now with their partner, same-sex couple, and one of them in their attendance of Happy Hour told me before we began one of the shows that they were now going by he, him, which was new for them. That was not what they were assigned at birth. And my little neurodiverse brain went, yeah, cool, excellent, fantastic, that's just new information. And then during the show, interacted with them, because they're very fantastic people, called them beautiful boy, just because that's just natural, that's what I've been informed as. And they came up to me afterwards and since have told me again and again and again that they were moved to tears, because it was so simple that somebody accepted them in that way, and the other acts accepted them in that way and just used their pronouns. They have since, both of them, gone on to both be, now they're both male, and they're still together, and they call me their honorary auntie, and they're my honorary nephews, and I absolutely adore them. They're the most beautiful pair that you could ever meet. And given the fact that my upbringing is very politically and ideologically different to who I am and my values and principles, having that space and having that story and many others just means so much. It's a place that, and everybody is welcome, absolutely, and everybody is welcome as long as you're lovely to each other. That's really all I care about.
Well, I'm trying to work out through this podcast and sort of in all my thoughts how to create more spaces like this. I've got some ideas, and I'm just sort of really I'm hoping to explore that with everyone. So I'm interested in how spaces like cafes can become vital community assets that connect and unite people. And I know you think like me, like you believe in kindness and humanity, and you've seen it in action at both the Canvas spaces. So I'd love to know, in your opinion, what makes a cafe space become somewhere that can shape shift to hosting something like live comedy or live music, or indeed any type of community gathering?
So firstly, to stress the importance of community, I have been working for a mental health charity that focuses on research. So I read medical papers regularly about what scientists are saying for the latest mental health research. And in the last few years, particularly 21 to 24, a lot of the research has been saying the arts, creativity, community. So that there's a phrase in one of the papers that I read that was the social cure needs to be rolled out. So in inverted commas, the social cure, involving live events and that community space, the community gathering, that is this safe space for people to connect with other people. It gives them the platform to, like, there's the 5 ways of well-being. So I do mental health training as well, and the 5 ways of well-being can all be personified in a cafe, which, you know, includes things like connecting with others, generosity, giving to other people, being able to take notice, so it being a calm space as well. There's so many, and being active as well, being active with the community. There's practical things, like you do need a space that is accessible, ideally can be transformed with lighting. Very simple. Like for me, these are all nice to have. They're not essential. You know, it was nice to have some lighting. It was nice to have a projector screen. I would say having a microphone is important, but that's like, it's really basic stuff and it's easy to do. The thing that was so easy at the Canvas and isn't necessarily easy elsewhere is the atmosphere and the ethos, that the people that work there, they're like the first port of call for the audience to experience the night. So, and they are a part of the show. If they walk into a cafe and they have that warm welcome and they feel like this is their space and they're a vital part of it, then they're going to feel at ease, and they're going to come into the show, particularly for comedy, at ease and ready to laugh, not feeling like, oh, I don't want to be singled out, or I'm on edge. The Canvas did that beautifully. So the other thing that it needs, as well as kindness and gentleness, is ideas. And you're never short of them, Ruth. But yeah, as you say, we do both believe in kindness and compassion, which is part of what is informing one of my shows this year called Hope Punk. The word Hope Punk is a real word, and it's a genre of fiction. And it's about characters that believe in community, kindness, social justice. That they're going to keep fighting for those things in our society. So just to let you know, you are a hope punk, and the Canvas was very hope punk, and I hope that can continue.
Wow, I did not know that. So I'm going to add that to my LinkedIn profile. Ruth Rogers, Hope Punk, part of the Hope Punk community. Just two more questions. Just, I want to know, is Happy Hour still going now? And if not, what's next for you? And just tell us how people can learn more about what you're up to at the moment.
So Happy Hour, it did go on to be at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival for 1 year, and it being a mixed bill lineup, it was really fun. But it really felt at home at the Canvas. It needed to be a space that had that ethos of kindness and compassion, and sort of, it was a synchronicity between the space and your outlook of what the community space could do. Things like the Pay It Forward board, and the idea that coming to the canvas, it wasn't just for the comedy, it was also something bigger and greater, and it was baked into both happy hour and the canvas as a venue. But in terms of me and what I do, at the moment, happy hour hasn't currently got a home. It hasn't currently got a space that feels like it's the right space for it. I would love it to find a home again in the future, and potentially at another canvas venue. And where people can go to find out what I'm up to, they can follow me on all the social medias. It's Juliette, JULIETTE, and Burton, like Richard Burton, or the menswear shop, or the snowboarding company, depending on your references. And I'm on Instagram the most. I'm also still on Twitter, but not as much anymore. I'm also on Facebook, which is Juliette Burton, writer performer. And my website is julietteburton.co.uk, where you can find my tour dates. I will be at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival performing Hope Punk and Going Rogue, and I'm going to be on tour around the UK in autumn and winter 24-25. Hopefully next year as well. We've got big plans for a big project, so fingers crossed.
Wow, well, thank you so much. That was it. That was the first ever episode of the Canvas podcast. Sitting here on my sofa where I have cried and grieved that space, I feel hopeful. So thank you so much, Juliette. Thanks so much for listening. And I believe the way to close these is to say like and subscribe. See you next time. Thanks so much for listening to these stories of hope. Please share, like and subscribe, and look out for new episodes every week. And hey, I'm exploring how we might connect and unite existing cafes to add on the activities that the Canvas saw would bring so much help and happiness to our community. Things like a pay it forward board, a food bank, and community events. Do you know a cafe that might want to get involved? Maybe you own one. Please get in touch. You can send me a DM on Instagram at The Canvas for Change, or email me at ruth@thecanvascafe.org. Wouldn't it be wonderful if we could create a network of cafes, all of them offering spaces for humans to be amazing? Let's make it happen.